When we are stressed, we are more likely to say something that probably we shouldn't say. We are more likely to move, and if you're trying to suppress movement, you'll feel that as a tremor. You're going to feel agitated, and that's because it was designed to move you. So this is important because if you want to control stress, you need to learn how to work with that agitation. I'd like to give you a tool at this point because I think if we go any further with a lot more science, people are going to begin to wonder if this is just going to be a kind of standard university lecture about the stress response. I'm going to give you more science about the stress response, but I want to take what we now already know about the stress response and use that as a framework for thinking about how one might reduce or even eliminate the stress response quickly in real time should it arise when we don't want it. So we're taking the podium or we're sitting down at a Zoom call and all of a sudden we're feeling flushed. We're feeling like our heart is racing. We're feeling a little too alert. We're feeling a little worked up and we want to calm down. As far as I am aware of, the best tools to reduce stress quickly, so-called real-time tools, are going to be tools that have a direct line to the so-called autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is a name given to the kind of general features of alertness or calmness in the body. It means automatic, although we do have some control over it at certain what so-called levers or entry points. Here's what doesn't work to control stress: telling yourself to calm down. In fact, that tends to just exacerbate stress. Telling someone else to calm down also tends to exacerbate their stress. If you want to reduce the magnitude of the stress response, the best thing you can do is activate the other system in the body, which is designed for calming and relaxation. And that system is called the parasympathetic nervous system. Because as I mentioned before, the neurons that control stress run from about your neck to your navel. The parasympathetic neurons, para just means near, exist they are some of the cranial nerves, so it's kind of neck and lower brain stem, kind of back of the brain and in the neck, and in the pelvic area. And the parasympathetic nervous system is really interesting because especially the cranial nerves, the ones that are up in the brain stem and in the neck area, those have a direct line to various features of your face, in particular the eyes. They control things like eye movements, pupil dilation, things of that sort, as well as the tongue, the facial muscles, etc. The parasympathetic nervous system, many people don't realize this, is the system by which we control the face and the eyes, and to some extent our airway, the trachea. And it's these neurons that reside within the pelvic area. Now, the neurons within the pelvic area are involved in control of the genitals, the bladder, and the rectum. And those don't have a direct line. You don't have a direct way to control those. It actually has to go from brain to spinal cord and then out to those organs. Whereas the parasympathetic nervous system has certain entry points, or what I'll call levers, right, that will allow you to push back on the stress response in real time and diminish it and feel more relaxed really quickly. So I'm going to teach you the first tool now so I don't overwhelm you with all this academic knowledge without giving you something useful. And the tool that, at least to my knowledge, is the fastest and most thoroughly grounded in physiology and neuroscience for calming down in a self-directed way is what's called the physiological sigh, S-I-G-H. Now, some of you might have heard me talk about this on previous podcasts, but I'm going to explain this in the context of how respiration in general is used to calm us down. And it turns out you're all doing this all the time, but you are doing it involuntarily. And when you stress, you tend to forget that you can also activate these systems voluntarily. This is an extremely powerful set of techniques that we know from scientific studies that are being done in my lab, Jack Feldman's lab at UCLA, and others now, that are very, very useful for reducing your stress response in real time. And here's how they work. These days, there seems to be a lot of interest in breath work. Breath work typically is when you go and you sit down or you lie down and you deliberately breathe in a particular way for a series of minutes in order to shift your physiology, access some states. And it does have some utility that we're going to talk about. That is not what I'm talking about now. What I'm talking about when I refer to physiological sighs is the very real medical school textbook relationship between the brain, the body, and the body as it relates to the breathing apparatus, meaning the diaphragm and lungs, and the heart. Let's take the hallmark of the stress response. The heart starts beating faster. Blood is shuttled to the big muscles of the body to move you away from whatever it is the stressor is, or just make you feel like you need to move or talk. Your face goes flushed, etc. Heart rate, many of us feel, is involuntary. Just kind of functions whether or not we're moving fast or moving slow. If you think about it, it's not really purely autonomic, because you can speed up your heart rate by running, or you can slow it down by slowing down by your run. You can move to a walk or lie down, but that's indirect control. There is, however, a way in which you can breathe that directly controls your heart rate through the interactions between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. Here's how it works. When you inhale, so whether or not it's through the nose or through the mouth, this skeletal muscle that's inside your body, called the diaphragm, it moves down. And that's because the lungs expand, the diaphragm moves down. Your heart actually gets a little bit bigger in that expanded space. There's more space for the heart. So I'm not talking about your emotional heart getting bigger. I'm talking about your actual physical heart getting a little bit bigger. The volume grows. And as a consequence, whatever blood is in there is now at a lower volume, or moving a little bit more slowly in that larger volume than it was before you inhaled. Okay, so more space, heart gets bigger, blood moves more slowly, and there's a little group of neurons called the sinoatrial node in the heart that registers, believe it or not, those neurons pay attention to the rate of blood flow through the heart and send a signal up to the brain that blood is moving more slowly through the heart. The brain then sends a signal back to the heart to speed the heart up. So what this means is, if you want your heart to beat faster, inhale longer, inhale more vigorously than your exhales. Now, there are a variety of ways that one could do that, but it doesn't matter if it's through the nose or through the mouth. If your inhales are longer than your exhales, you're speeding up your heart. If your inhales are more vigorous, so even if your inhales are shorter than your exhales, you are speeding up your heart rate. Now, the opposite is also true. If you want to slow your heart rate down, so stress response hits, you want to slow your heart rate down. What you want to do is, again, capitalize on this relationship between the body, meaning the diaphragm and the heart, and the brain. Here's how it works. When you exhale, the diaphragm moves up, which makes the heart a little bit smaller. It actually gets a little more compact. Blood flows more quickly through that compact space, sort of like it's just a pipe getting smaller. The sinoatrial node registers that blood is going more quickly, sends a signal up to the brain, and the parasympathetic nervous system, some neurons in your brainstem, send a signal back to the heart to slow the heart down. So if you want to calm down quickly, you need to make your exhales longer and or more vigorous than your inhales. Now, the reason this is so attractive as a tool for controlling stress is that it works in real time. This doesn't involve a practice that you have to go and sit there and do anything separate from life. And we are going to get to emotion. Emotions and stress happen in real time. And so while it's wonderful to have a breathwork practice, or to have the opportunity to get a massage or sit in a sauna or do whatever it is that you do in order to set your stress controls in the right direction, having tools that you can reach to in real time that require no learning. I mean, I had to teach it to you. You had to learn that, but it doesn't require any plasticity to activate these pathways. So if you're feeling stressed, you still need to inhale, of course, but you need to lengthen your exhales. Now,